Welcome to Midnight Clues.
With Clara Monroe and Elias Gray, we pull apart the stories the world can't stop whispering about. Today, we're looking into a mystery that's, well, captivated Russia for decades. It's the Dyatlov Pass incident.
A truly chilling story.
Absolutely. So, picture it. February 1959, deep in the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. A true event so bizarre, it sparked, countless theories.
Oh yeah, everything from, secret government stuff, aliens, even the Yeti gets a mention.
It's often called Russia's biggest unsolved mystery. And amazingly, just last year, the Russian Prosecutor General's office actually reopened the investigation.
Which really tells you something about how much this case still resonates, doesn't it? Our aim here, for you listening, isn't to chase down every single wild idea, though.
No, definitely not.
Instead, we want to really dig into the facts. We're focusing on the evidence we actually have, the investigation records, the photos the hikers took, autopsy reports, official documents.
Yeah, we want to unpack what really happened, or at least what the evidence suggests, in this incredibly gripping and honestly deeply sad story.
It really is.
Okay, so let's talk about the people involved. The Dyatlov group. There were 10 of them initially, 8 men, 2 women.
Mostly students or recent graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, UPI as it was known.
Led by Igor Dyatlov, and there was also Alexander Zolotarev, who is a bit older, an instructor.
And it's crucial to understand, these weren't novices. They weren't just out for a casual stroll.
No, not at all. They were certified grade 2 hikers, and this trip, they were aiming for grade 3.
Which is the highest classification in that system. It means they were seriously experienced, especially in winter conditions.
Yeah.
Navigation, survival skills, they knew their stuff.
Right. These are competent people. That point is really important.
It really is. It pushes back against any idea that this was just, inexperienced hikers panicking over something simple.
And we should also mention Yuri Yudin, the 10th member.
Ah, yes. The one who survived. He had to turn back early on, January 28th, because of severe knee and joint pain. Just couldn't continue.
A decision that tragically saved his life. So their plan was to trek to a mountain called Mount Otorten. They set off from Vizai, which was the last settlement nearby.
And they were expected back, or at least expected, to send a telegram confirming they were okay by February 12th at the latest.
Their route took them towards this mountain pass near a peak called Kholat Shakal,
which ominously translates from the local Mansi language as Dead Mountain.
Chilling name. And they ended up setting up camp on the slope of this mountain. It seems they deviated a bit from their planned route.
Yeah, it looks like worsening weather probably forced their hand. They'd intended to cross the pass and camp on the other side, apparently, but got a bit off track and decided to pitch the tent there on the exposed slope.
Which itself is a bit unusual, isn't it? Camping on an open slope like that.
It is. They were only about, a mile and a half from the tree line downhill. Much more shelter there.
So why didn't they go there?
Well, speculation is Dyatlov maybe didn't want to lose the altitude they'd gained. Or perhaps, wanted to practice camping in difficult conditions for that grade 3 certification. It's hard to say for sure.
Right. So February 12th comes and goes. No telegram, no sign of the group.
Understandably, their families started to get very worried.
And by February 20th, a full-scale search and rescue operation was launched. Volunteers, students, teachers.
And eventually the army and police got involved too. Planes, helicopters, the works.
And then on February 26th in the morning, the search party made the first discovery.
Up in the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, they found the tent.
But it wasn't just an empty tent. It was partially torn down, buried in snow, empty, yes, but...
All their belongings were still inside. Boots, supplies, everything they needed to survive.
And here's the kicker, the really critical detail for you listening. The tent had been cut open, slashed from the inside.
Yes, from the inside. That is just pivotal. Why would experienced hikers in freezing temperatures deliberately cut open their only shelter?
Unless something truly terrifying was happening inside that tent. They used a knife to get out fast, not the entrance. It screams panic.
Extreme urgency, definitely. Something made them flee without even grabbing boots.
And it gets weirder. Investigators found footprints leading away from the tent.
8 or 9 sets of tracks heading down the slope towards the woods.
But the state of the feet that made those tracks, people were wearing only socks. Or maybe a single shoe. Some were completely barefoot.
Barefoot in the snow. Sub-zero temperatures. It's almost unimaginable.
And the tracks weren't scattered like a panicked flight in all directions?
No, they were surprisingly orderly, descending in single file initially, like a deliberate retreat, however desperate.
But after about 500 meters near the edge of the forest, the tracks just vanished. covered by snow, lost among the trees.
Where did they go? What happened next?
The searchers found out soon enough. The first two bodies were discovered under a huge old cedar tree at the forest line.
Yuri Krivonashenko and Yuri Doroshenko.
And just like the footprints suggested, no shoes, barely any clothes, just their underwear.
And the scene at that cedar tree, it adds another layer of mystery. There was evidence they'd climbed it.
Branches were broken off high up, like 5 meters off the ground.
And forensics found traces of human skin embedded in the bark. It suggests a really frantic, forceful effort to get up that tree.
Why? Trying to see something back towards the tent, or maybe get away from something on the ground.
It certainly looks that way. Why else climb a tree like that, nearly naked, in the freezing cold?
And another really grim detail about these two, the medical examiner noted livor mortis, that's the pooling of blood after death, on their fronts.
Right, which usually means they died lying face down. But if it forms on the back, you died lying face up.
So if it was on their fronts, it suggests they likely died lying face down, or maybe someone turned their bodies over after they died.
That's the implication, yes. Which just adds another question. Why move the bodies?
The search continued. The next morning, February 27th, they found 2 more bodies between the cedar tree and the tent.
Igor Dyatlov, the leader, about 300 meters from the cedar, and Zenaida Kolmogorova, further up, about 630 meters away.
And then about a week later, on March 5th, they found Rustam Slobodin, also between the tree and the tent.
The positions of these three really look like they were trying desperately to get back to the tent, maybe for shelter, supplies.
Makes sense. And the initial cause of death for them was listed as hypothermia, freezing to death.
Which seemed plausible, given the conditions and their lack of proper clothing. But there was an anomaly.
Slobodin, he had a skull fracture.
A non-fatal one, according to the initial report, but a fracture nonetheless.
So even early on, it wasn't just about the cold, was it? That fracture is a hint that something else, something violent might have happened.
Exactly. It immediately complicates the simple hypothermia explanation, even for those first 5 found.
Okay, so that's 5 people accounted for. But there were 4 missing. The search went on for months.
Right, until May 5th. The snow was finally starting to melt, revealing more.
And that's when they found the remaining 4, in a ravine about 75 meters deeper into the woods from the cedar tree.
Buried under nearly 4 meters of snow, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolvatov, Semyon Zolotarev, and Nikolai Thibault-Brignol.
And their condition? It was different. They were much better dressed than the others.
Yeah, it looked like they'd taken clothes from the bodies of their friends who had died earlier. Jackets, pants, whatever they could find.
Which tells you, just how desperate their fight for survival was, taking clothes off the dead.
It's harrowing. But the really shocking part came with the autopsy results for these 4.
Shocking is an understatement. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol had massive skull damage, just catastrophic.
And Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotarev both had multiple severe chest fractures, broken ribs, internal damage.
The medical examiner, Dr. Vozrojdeny, he compared the force needed to cause those injuries to, like being hit by a car.
A high-speed car crash, yes. Immense force.
But here's the truly baffling thing, the part that makes no sense. Despite these horrific internal injuries,
there were no significant external wounds. No major cuts, no bruising on the surface of the body that would explain that kind of crushing trauma.
How is that even possible? It's like they were squeezed by some incredible pressure.
It's one of the central, enduring mysteries. And then there was Lyudmila Dubinina, the missing tongue.
Yes. Her tongue and apparently some of the muscles around the floor of her mouth were just gone.
And they found about 100 grams of this dark brown mucosal mass in her stomach. The implications are just deeply disturbing and completely unexplained.
And near where these last 4 bodies were found, there was evidence they'd tried to make a shelter.
Yeah, they dug out a sort of den in the snowdrift in the ravine.
And even lined it with branches cut from a cedar tree, probably for insulation.
It shows they were still thinking, still trying to survive using their knowledge.
But their bodies weren't found in the den. They were found a few feet away from it.
Why abandon the shelter they'd just built? It just adds another layer of questions. What forced them out?
Let's quickly run through some of the specific details noted for each body because they add to the picture. Yuri Doroshenko.
Right, he had that strange brown-purple skin color. Wool socks, one was burned. Bled from the mouth and nose.
Yeah.
And that grayish fluid on his cheek, possibly suggesting chest compression. Maybe someone tried CPR or maybe something else.
And the livor mortis on his back, again suggesting he was moved after death.
Then Yuri Krivonashenko found near him. Minimal clothes, no shoes, burns on his foot and legs.
And the really disturbing detail skin found between his teeth.
Yeah, the speculation is he might have bitten his own hand, maybe to stifle a scream or fight off unconsciousness. Grim. And his clothes were likely taken by the others.
Igor Dyatlov, the leader, found face up, fists clenched, jacket unbuttoned weird for freezing weather.
Bluish-red face, dried blood on lips, bruised knuckles, suggesting maybe a fight or heating something.
Wearing mismatched socks, and his watch had stopped. 5.31.
5.31. A specific time. Then Zenaida Kolmogorova.
Face down, heading towards the tent, it seemed. Purplish-red skin again, better dressed, but a torn sleeve, no shoes.
And a long bruise on her side. Some reports compared it to being hit by something like a baton.
Rustem Slobodin, also face down, heading towards the tent, under snow. Decent layers, but only one felt boot.
His watch stopped at 8:45 a.m., and that skull fracture. The report mentions unusual bruising, maybe from repeated falls or blows, not just one impact, found on an icy patch.
Okay, the final four. Lyudmila Dubanina, found in the stream, water flowing over her mouth area.
Wearing that radioactive sweater and pants, likely Krivonochenko's. And the missing tongue.
Horrific. And those symmetrical chest fractures, broken ribs on both sides, hemorrhaging inside. She was definitely alive when that happened.
Definitely. Semyon Zolotarev, surprisingly well-dressed, layers, warm shoes, had a camera on his neck.
Which was apparently a surprise. Yuri Yadin thought there were only 4 cameras. The film was damaged by water, unfortunately.
And he had a pen and notepad in his hand, which Colonel Orlov, the investigator, apparently took, cursed, said nothing was written, and then it vanished.
Very suspicious. And Zolotarev had injuries similar to Dubanina's massive chest trauma sustained while alive.
Alexander Kolovatov, also well-layered, though his jacket was unbuttoned, had a radioactive waistband. Injuries included a broken nose, deformed neck, a wound behind his ear. The report on him was oddly vague.
And finally, Nikolai Thibault Brignol. Well protected, even had hiking boots on, but that skull injury.
A deep, multi-splintered fracture. The examiner specifically said it wasn't from a fall. Massive force, but again, not much external damage around it. Livor mortis on his back.
Okay, let's circle back to the tent for a moment. Those cuts.
Clearly from the inside, with a knife. Some didn't even go all the way through.
Inside, they found the flattened snow pads, skis used for support, the 9 backpacks with all their gear jackets, boots, stove, axes, food, cameras.
And that satirical leaflet, Evening at Torton. Seems like morale was okay shortly before whatever happened.
The entrance faced south, clear of snow. The north side was heavily drifted, suggesting wind, not an avalanche burying it. Skis were sticking out nearby.
And Dyatlov's ice axe and jacket were outside. A working flashlight was found in the snow, strangely with no snow on the flashlight itself.
Odd. And those 8 or 9 sets of tracks leading away. Importantly, 3 axes and 3 knives were left behind in the tent. Their food cache was untouched.
Right. They didn't take weapons or supplies, just fled.
Now, the cedar tree area.
A flat area, remains of a fire, small fir branches cut nearby with a knife. The snow was heavily trampled, suggesting several people gathered wood.
And those lower branches on the cedar, broken off. The side facing the tent was cleared of branches, like they made a viewpoint.
Yeah, trying to see what was happening back at the tent, presumably.
And the den, where the final 4 were found nearby.
Cedar branches laid down for insulation. Lyudmila wearing radioactive clothes, probably from Krivonochenko. The body's crushed, but found just outside the den.
And reports that Kolovatov seemed to be shielding Zolotar. Plus, that vanished notepad Orlov took.
The rescuers felt the whole investigation was rushed, like they already had a theory. Even the helicopter pilots were suspicious, initially refusing to transport the bodies without lead-lined coffins because of radiation fears, until Orlov apparently forced them.
Which brings us to the radiation.
Yes, some clothes, particularly Dubanina's sweater, showed higher than normal levels of beta radiation. It apparently washed off partially.
Where did it come from? Radioactive dust. Direct contact.
The radiologist couldn't say for sure. Some have linked it to Kolovatov and Krivonochenko's past work in nuclear facilities, but it's just speculation, no proof.
Okay, so with all these bizarre facts, countless theories have sprung up. Let's quickly touch on a few. KGB or CIA involvement.
The idea that Zolotarev or others were agents on a secret mission gone wrong doesn't quite fit with what friends said about the group's dynamics.
Escaped Gulag prisoners attacking them.
Unlikely, given their belongings were left. Why wouldn't prisoners take valuables or warm clothes? And those unidentified Omaki clothes found remain a puzzle.
Radiosondes leaking something toxic.
And maybe explain some internal issues or skin color, but no concrete link established.
Secret military tests, special forces cover-up.
Plausible way to explain injuries and secrecy, but again, zero hard evidence. Just conjecture.
An attack by local Mansi people.
Seems unlikely. Valuables weren't taken, injuries don't match typical hunting weapons, and they were generally peaceful with hikers.
Okay, what about natural causes? An avalanche.
The tent wasn't buried correctly for a slab avalanche, skis were upright, the tracks show an orderly descent, not chaotic digging out. And it doesn't explain the crushing injuries without external trauma.
UFOs, alien abduction.
Well, there were reports of strange lights around that time, but it's pure speculation. No physical evidence.
Infrasound, wind causing panic.
Could explain the panic maybe, but definitely not the physical injuries.
The Yeti theory.
Fun to think about, but relies on basically nothing. No footprints, just one very dubious photo.
Lightning strike. Ball lightning.
Could maybe explain some burns or odd deaths, maybe the lights, but getting all 9 that way seems incredibly improbable.
Faulty stove. Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Stove wasn't assembled, tent was cut open, not sealed. Autopsy didn't confirm CO poisoning. Doesn't fit.
What about katabatic winds? Sudden, fierce downhill winds.
Could explain needing to get away from the tent fast, maybe some injuries from being blown around, but doesn't quite cover the severity of the chest skull injuries or the organized initial retreat.
So as you can hear, we've covered a lot of ground here, a huge amount of confusing detail in this deep dive.
Yeah, and the main thing that sticks out for you listening is just how many questions remain completely unanswered.
Why cut the tent from the inside? What caused those horrific internal injuries with no external signs? Where did the radiation come from?
And the missing tongue.
Wow.
Missing eyes that some reports mentioned. Just what happened out there. The official Soviet conclusion back in '59 was that they died from an unknown compelling force.
Which sounds dramatic, but is basically saying, we have no idea. And honestly, that's still deeply unsatisfying, isn't it? Especially now, having gone through all these facts with us.
It really is. So having heard the evidence, the state of the bodies, the scene, the inconsistencies, what feels closest to an explanation to you? Forget proof for a second, just based on the evidence we have.
Yeah, which possibility, however strange, seems least impossible? What single piece of evidence, the tent, the injuries, the radiation, the footprints, the missing tongue, stands out most to you, and why? It's a mystery that really forces you to think.